You're sitting in a room right now, phone nearby, a screen in front of you. 17 different things you could switch to if this gets boring. And somehow, you're still bored. Now remove all of it. No phone, no screen, no music, no podcast, no book, no show. Just you, a fire, and the same 12 people you've seen every single day for your entire life. That was the default human experience for 300,000 years. So the question isn't whether ancient humans got bored. The question is what happened inside a brain with nothing to consume, and whether what they did with that emptiness is something we've completely lost. Let's start with what boredom actually is. Psychologists define it as a mismatch. Your brain wants stimulation. Nothing available meets that need. The result is a specific kind of discomfort, restlessness, dissatisfaction, the urge to do something, anything. And here's the thing, that feeling is not modern, it's ancient. Researchers studying the neuroscience of boredom have found that the same brain network activated when you're bored today, the default mode network, is one of the oldest structures in the human brain. It predates language, it predates tools. Your brain was built to want stimulation before it was built to do almost anything else. So yes, ancient humans got bored, but what they did with it is where things get strange. In 2021, a team of psychologists at the University of Waterloo reviewed decades of research on boredom and creativity. Their finding was direct. Boredom is not a problem, it's a trigger. When the brain finds no external stimulation, it turns inward. It starts generating ideas, images, plans, stories. What we call daydreaming, ancient humans likely experienced constantly, not as distraction, but as the default mode of a mind with nothing competing for its attention. Now think about what came out of that. In 1994, explorers discovered Chauvet Cave in southern France. Inside were paintings created roughly 30,000 years ago. Horses and lions and rhinoceroses rendered with perspective, shading, depth, not crude marks, actual art. Someone crawled deep into a cave, lit a fire, and spent hours, possibly days, painting animals on stone walls. Not for food, not for survival, for something else entirely. In Blombos Cave in South Africa, archaeologists found shell beads 100,000 years old. Tiny holes drilled through seashells with stone tools. The nearest coastline was 20 kilometers away. Someone walked 40 kilometers round trip just to collect them, then spent more hours drilling each one by hand. Not useful, not edible, beautiful. In Germany, a 40,000-year-old flute carved from a vulture bone, 5 finger holes precisely spaced. Whoever made this didn't stumble into it. They understood pitch, they experimented, they refined. They made something that exists only to make sound that pleases the ear. This is what a bored human brain produces when there is nothing to consume. It makes things. But it wasn't just objects. The other output of prehistoric boredom was something even older. Stories. In 2014, anthropologist Polly Wiesner analyzed hundreds of hours of recorded conversations from the Juhoansi people of southern Africa. During the day, conversations were practical. Where did you see animal tracks? Which plants are ready? Who isn't sharing fairly? But at night, around the fire, 81% of conversations shifted entirely. Myths, ancestors who did impossible things, jokes, adventures from distant places. The entire imagination of the group poured out into the dark. Wiesner argued this is where human culture was actually born, not in tools, not in weapons, in stories told by bored people sitting around a fire with nowhere else to be. And those stories weren't passive entertainment. They were how knowledge got transmitted, how moral frameworks got built, how a child learned what the world was before they were old enough to see it themselves. Boredom created the first school. It created the first mythology. It created the first art. Now here's where it gets uncomfortable. Modern humans have essentially declared war on boredom. The average person checks their phone 96 times per day. That's once every 10 minutes while awake. Social media platforms are engineered at the neurological level to eliminate any gap between stimulation and the next stimulation. The entire attention economy, streaming, feeds, notifications, autoplay, exists for one purpose: to make sure you are never, for a single moment, bored. And it's working. A 2014 study by Timothy Wilson at the University of Virginia found that most people, when placed alone in a room with nothing to do, found the experience so uncomfortable that they chose to give themselves mild electric shocks rather than sit with their own thoughts. 67% of men and 25% of women chose pain over quiet. We are so unaccustomed to mental silence that our own minds have become unbearable to us. But something else is happening at the same time. Creativity is declining. The Torrance tests of creative thinking have been used to measure creative output in children and adults since the 1950s. For decades, scores rose. Then, in 1990, they plateaued. Since 2000, across multiple studies, they have dropped. Researchers studying the decline point to one consistent factor: reduced unstructured time, less free play, less boredom, less time with nothing to do. A brain that is never bored is a brain that never has to generate, it only has to receive. And a brain that only receives eventually loses the ability to produce. This is what ancient humans had that we don't. Not more intelligence, not a different brain, just more time inside their own heads with nothing to look at. Let's reconstruct what that actually looked like. You wake up, the fire is low. Someone adds wood. You eat something left over from yesterday. No one is in a hurry because there is nowhere to be. Around mid-morning, a few people leave to hunt or gather. But if there's enough food from 2 days ago, you don't go. You sit. Maybe you pick up a stone and start shaping it. Not because you need a new tool right now, because your hands want something to do and your brain follows your hands. You work at it for an hour. The shape improves. You feel something that is not exactly pride, but is close. Someone nearby starts telling a story about something that happened 3 seasons ago. You've heard it before. You listen anyway. Someone adds a detail that changes the ending slightly. Everyone reacts to the change. In the afternoon, children run around the edge of camp. You watch them. You're not bored exactly. You're present in a way that modern humans almost never are, because there is nothing else competing for your attention. No notification asking you to be somewhere else. The sun drops. The fire gets bigger. Someone starts humming something. It becomes a rhythm. 2 people move to it. This is the day. This is what a human brain does when given time and no alternative. It creates. It connects. It stories itself into meaning. There's a concept in psychology called flow, the state where you're so absorbed in something that time disappears. Athletes feel it. Musicians feel it. Surgeons feel it. Researcher Mihai Csikszentmihalyi spent decades studying it and found that flow requires one specific condition. The task must be challenging enough to engage you, but not so difficult it overwhelms you. Just at the edge of your ability. Ancient humans lived at that edge constantly, shaping a tool to the right weight, reading animal tracks in soil, memorizing a landscape well enough to navigate it without error. Their brains were being used the way brains were designed to be used. Not overstimulated, not understimulated, precisely stimulated. Flow wasn't a peak experience for them. It was Tuesday. So here's what we actually know. Ancient humans got bored, the same way you do, the same neural machinery, the same discomfort, the same restlessness. But they had no mechanism to escape it, no feed to scroll, no show to start. So they did what a brain does when left alone with itself. They made things. They told stories. They carved bones and drilled shells and painted caves and built music out of hollow bird bones. They turned empty hours into culture. We solved boredom. We built entire industries to make sure no one ever has to feel it. And what we made with all that saved time is mostly content we'll forget by tomorrow. They were bored. And somehow, 30,000 years later, we're still looking at what they made on cave walls and calling it art.